We'll call this commission meeting on January the 24th to order. We'll start out with roll call. Sorry.
Josh Jones,
Here.
Tim Van Hookey,
Here.
Edwin Woolhoff, Matthew Wells.
Here. Now we'll do the flag salute. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the blessings you bestow upon each one of us, including each one in this room, each one in this town, each one in our nation. Lord, please give us the strength to continue to carry on to do what we know is right. Help us to see the misfortunes of others as we move forward in our day by lifting them up as you would want us to do. Lord, please watch out over our armed forces around the world. Protect them. Watch out for their families while they're separated. Please look out for and care for our first responders as well. Give us the strength, the courage, the knowledge, and the wisdom to come together and do what we know is right as we try to guide the policies and move our great city forward. Thank you so much again for all of your blessings that we get each and every day. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Does anyone have any additional items they wanted to add to the agenda for this evening?
We do need to approve the agenda because there are amendments to it.
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda in front of us.
I'll second.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Edwin Woolhoff,
Yes.
Josh Jones,
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes.
And then I was looking through the consent agenda on here. I only had a couple of questions on that. On here, Brad, you know if these billings from for the Lake Fort Scott Dam work, are we expecting any more after that, or does this pretty much complete them? That's it?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. And then I'd also just noticed on here, and a couple of our fees that we're paying, like to Bourbon County Ready and stuff like that, these are December and January fees. Were we a little bit behind from last year? Or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
we're getting there.
All right.
The only questions I had on the consent agenda was the payment to KTK, and what that was for.
I mean, KTK or KMIT? I don't see KTK on my agenda.
It's on almost last page,
I can just tell you.
It's for $6,426.95. It's for the hookups for the lagoon electrical system. It's additional to the $37,000 that was already billed and already paid for when we started the lagoon bug sludge removal. It's for additional materials, labor, and excavation.
My only thing on that was it was a bid job, and we didn't get a change order or nothing. And this is a 15% increase on it. Did they say why they had to increase it?
It was actually, if you look at the, well, you don't have the additional, the very first PO was not bid out because it was deemed an emergency by the, what was his title? Interim city manager at the time. So it was deemed an emergency PO, so it was not bid out. So,
That's right. So, if I could just ask if you could reach out to KTK and just ask if they expect any other additionals that wasn't in the original contract when they were awarded it without going out to bid for everyone else to bid it.
okay.
And then Brad, on the Kansas 911 Council, is that an annual fee or did we upgrade equipment?
That's an annual fee.
An annual fee,
Yes.
okay, that's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure.
And then I had a question, if I could, on the AMS.
Yes.
My understanding from reading the contract was that we didn't pay until they proved that we only had 1 inch of sludge remaining.
You paid 50%. You pay 50% once it's down 50%. And the map that I gave you, they were down 50%.
Yes, sir. Yep.
So we will not pay anything else until it's down to those inches.
And we will be able to verify that with a secondary source.
Yes. Jason knows the name of the group. I'm not sure what the letters are. What? There you go.
And then,
They'll be here. It's a big waiting list, so we'll have to wait until they can come to do the last. They're still saying 45 days till they're probably done, according to what the weather does too.
and then final question is, we specified for this money to come out of a specific account. Is that tied to it within this consent agenda, or is this planned to come out of somewhere else?
The AMS,
Mhm.
it'll come out of that special account.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, sir. We have any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Edwin Wohol,
Yes.
Josh Jones,
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes. Lisa, do we have anyone signed up for public comments this evening?
Yes.
First off, this evening, we'd like to invite Steve Anthony to speak to us, please. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Steve Anthony. I'm with the Birmingham Special Olympics Golf Scramble. I know it's early, but there is. I know it's early, but there is a ton of work that goes into this thing. I just come tonight to ask permission to use the lights at the tennis court again for the night of our festivities, where we give away all the prizes and stuff. One different thing we are doing this year, the celebrities that were here last year, they're coming again. They're going to come in on Wednesday this year, and they're going to do a baseball camp on Thursday for the kids, and then they're going to do a basketball camp for kids on Thursday. They wanted to do it in one day. Because, let's take Andy's kids. They may want to do both. So we did, do Wednesday and Thursday that way. Kids could do both things if they want. So that's about the only big change that we have. But the same guys that were here last year will be here again.
Awesome.
Like I said, just ask for permission to use the lights at the tennis court again.
You sure with all those prizes that keep putting out there, the tennis courts are going to be big enough, or are we going to have to open up?
We do have a lot so far.
No, that's great, Steve.
I want to thank Brad for letting us put the golf cart out at the golf course. It's out there and doing well. And good. Golf course. It's if you're a K-State fan, you'll love it. It's K-State purple and looks really good this year. What about those of us that are not K-State?
You'll be sick.
Well, we won't talk about that.
Just think of it as eggplant colored, and you'll be all right. No, I would move to allow the Special Olympics golf tournament folks to use the lights at the tennis courts out at the golf course for the Special Olympics golf tournament outing.
And it will be held July 29th this year.
July 29th.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, who was first? Tim? Yeah. Josh Jones,
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Edwin Wohol,
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes.
And if anyone would ever have any questions, they can reach out to myself or Andrew Diefenbaugh. We're
Thank you,
Yep.
Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we'd like to invite Michael Hoyt. And Michael, could you use the other mic? I believe that one keeps dying. Thank you, sir.
Just wanted to give you all an update on former Commissioner Pete Allen. He's doing well after surgery. He had quite a ordeal. He had a aortic aneurysm corrected, new heart valve. They cleaned up his bypass. I don't think I'm violating HIPAA here, but I figure he's good for another 100,000 miles after this. They tried to get him up today, a little early. Their goal was to get him out of intensive care by Friday. So I know everyone's been keeping him in his thoughts, and I'm sure he and Janice appreciate that. Also, I'd like to recognize, for those of you that know Ray Streeter, he was recognized at that other school other than KU, K-State, or he was recognized at KU as a Vietnam, recognized as a awarded Medal of Honor winner during the Vietnam campaign. And we got some good news from him on certain things with the VA today, which I won't go into. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'd like to invite Eddie Towney to the stand. To the stand.
You have to be sworn in.
We're working on it. The one on the left. Sorry.
How's that? Eddie Townley. I was hoping, I'm here in regards to the splash pad. I was hoping to actually hear some discussion on it and then maybe follow up with some comments. But it looks like we're going to go in reverse order of what I was hoping. So I have a vested interest in the downtown, the northern interests, or northern part of downtown, as many of you may know. I've spoke before. I'm not against the splash pad. I just have lots of questions regarding it. And from someone who doesn't live in the community, it seems this was a grassroots thing that went on, and then it was popped up on us, and it's kind of here on us now for a vote, I believe, tonight. And that's what brings me here. Not a lot of concerns. I don't know. I don't particularly care for the area that it's been picked to be that location for it. As a member of the downtown district, I like the historicness of it, and I'm not against growth. I'm all for growth. I preach growth down here, and I just don't know how that fits in, I guess. And I understand its location west of the building by the fort. I'm a little surprised that the historical district with the state is okay with that, but from what I've read, they are. I've just got a few questions, and then I'll just kind of let it go. But I just wondered who purchased the land, or who donated the land, or how that spot was given up. Who will be responsible for winterizing? And I believe the city is going to take this over once it's put up. The maintenance, repair, the pumps, if something. It's from what I'm reading, and I mean no disrespect, but it's been a real rosy picture that's been painted for it. And then we all know in the real world that there's costs associated with that. And I guess I don't know how it's going to support the downtown. I know that was, I've read all the Facebook posts trying to keep up with it. I don't know that people that are going to the splash pad and getting soaking wet are going to be supportive of the downtown. And I'm not only here for the downtown, I'm here for the community, so I don't want to be prejudiced for just those 3 or 4 blocks. But, and then I guess I'd just like to hear, I don't know, some thoughts before the vote goes into place. I have a feeling the vote's probably, the minds are made up. I was just curious as to what spawned this. I read the post where all the feedback in the community wanted a splash pad, which is a little surprising to me. But I just would like to hear, I know Mr. Jones, you're involved in that, and maybe you can enlighten me a little bit. I'm just a little bit in the dark on why we chose all of Fort Scott. I understand the gun park wouldn't work for logistics or for the water or whatever, but that historic district is there for a reason, and the historicness is what drove me to this town. And a splash pad is probably not bringing me here, so I was just curious. So,
Yeah, so I'll speak on that real quick. So originally it was Gun Park. Infrastructure wouldn't work. Talked about Ellis Park. People complained that it'll get vandalized up there. Everything gets vandalized up there. Then we moved down to where the skate park was, and there's like, well, you get graffitied up. There's no lights down there. So at that point, I'm like, where would you like it? 2 grants came out worth about $100,000. Says, hey, we'll do these grants, but it has to be downtown. There was a study done 6-7 years ago that said a water feature downtown would be beneficial to Fort Scott. So that was taken into effect by these studies the cities paid for. And so I don't know when the study's done, 6-8 years ago. And so with that and these 2 grants, that's how it kind of became the option, because the grant said, well, you need to be downtown. We looked at 3 or 4 other locations. Someone always said that's not good enough. That won't work. We talked about the parking lot south of Cheney Witt. But the infrastructure there to get it going would have increased the cost by another $100,000. So we got with the fort and said, this is our plans. These are the colors. We started working with people downtown. We talked to business owners as they came to us, and we decided, hey, we have a deadline coming up, so that's the spot we're going to pick if there's no major concerns or pushback on it. So it still hasn't been approved by the commission for that spot. We want to make sure we do everything we can and not just pass it through before it gets. And if there's another spot downtown that would be good for it, I mean, we might lose the 100,000 in grants, but I don't know, because we had to pick a spot at a certain time, because this has been talked about for about 18 months, and the fundraising just happened like that, and we really didn't think it'd happen this quick. I mean, to get $200,000, we honestly thought this was a 2024 project, and the fundraising it just overwhelmingly came in. So,
well, and I know you have Timken, I believe I'm saying that right, in Walmart.
Walmart,
So
yes.
and they're obviously a lot smarter than me, and if they're throwing money at a project, it must be for the good. But who are you looking for city-owned land? Is that like in those spots you mentioned?
not necessarily. When we looked at it, we looked at infill spots even, or just anything. I mean, because we would have went to someone and purchased the land or whatever, and we had some gracious donors.
What grants are putting the time frame in? Are they state-funded grants? Is that the
No,
grants
there's
you're
just a
referring
couple
to?
of the grants. Most grants have deadlines, and so the ones we applied for said, "Hey, deadline's coming up. We've already applied for them, and it has to be downtown. Pick a spot."
Okay.
So if we move it, we might lose it, but if so be it, then we'll work to get other grants. We'll just probably be 2, 3, or 4 years more down the road, and if that's what commissioner citizens want, then so be it. So.
And
Well,
Commissioner Jones, if I may, also the fort itself was in on the conversation, and that was the area that they helped direct the splash pad to, because one of their upcoming pushes for the National Historic Programs is to have activities for children to do that are within so many feet of the actual natural historic site. So that is another reason that I believe that they chose that location, coupled with the fact that the farmers market had requested, with the amount of children that they have showing up at the farmers market, if there was some way to create something for the children to do while people were at the farmers market as well. And I believe that played a small part in directing people's decision to that area as well.
Yeah, the fort is something we reached out to from day one. Was down there and say, hey, give us ideas, give us suggestions, any major concerns. We've worked side by side with them since the beginning, and I realize it seemed like no matter where we put it, so we were trying to find the least amount of resistance. Because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's somewhere, and to me, when I first saw it, I'm like, I don't know if this, can I see this as a kid area, because downtown And one thing when talking to the fort, you know, the people that visit forts, and I'm probably gonna get yelled at for Matthew saying this, is kind of shrinking. I mean, with social media, with access, people want history, they can look on their phone, they can do that. So to get new people into history, you got to find ways to bring younger people more involved in that history, and tying things together downtown was a big factor, I thought, to helping the fort out. But and it, you know, hindsight's 2020. It might be the wrong decision by the time it's done. I don't know, but
Well, and that's a great point. I didn't know the fort was looking for children's activities, that they needed that part of their piece, because I'm a huge proponent of the fort. And I think that for those businesses downtown, that fort needs to double tourism. It's go from 30 something to 60 or whatever it is. That's a huge draw. And that's Jackson's job. We'll leave that up to him. But
back in the day when I was younger, you'd see buses going there all the time from all over. And then the other day I was down there, and I think they're from Sedalia or somewhere. They came pretty far, but I just don't see the buses of kids traveling here anymore. And so we talked to them, say, hey, maybe you can tie this in, make a day of it, make a pick, you know, and come to the fort, go over here, you know.
Yeah.
Because when we traveled when we were younger, that's what you do. You went to a place and you go to the park, you know, in grade school. And so that's how I see it tying together.
And so the maintenance, everything will roll over to the city
Yes.
once it's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we factored in, we're going the more expensive route to build it. It's less maintenance. So, you know, you check a filter once a week or whatever. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna say there's no cost. I mean, we factor in, you know, I would say 5 hours a week is probably 3 times as much as it's really gonna take. But I want to say that if you take it down in the winter, you have time to take it down. You can leave it up, but you know, paint will. So there is going to be time to say there's not going to be no cost to the city at all. Would be lying.
Right.
We try to make it as minimal as possible. But to me, you know, it's like golf course, the parks, the aquatic center, Buck Run. We were just trying to find different avenues for kids to.
Well, I mean, it's a
experience.
city. You have, I mean,
Yeah.
it's you own the building, you own the stuff. You have those issues. I'm looking out for Brad. I know he's going to have some hateful, some feedback on Facebook, which I try to support you on, Brad. I appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you.
Is there any, once you turn it over to the city, is there any, then that committee's done, there's no more financial support, it's you're signing it over?
I guess per se, but the people on this committee have been, Bailey's been on the downtown chamber board, and she's the one that helped initiated the downtown cleanup. So all of us are lifelong residents, and we didn't just start doing this for the splash pad. We've been doing it for years. So,
Right.
I mean, I personally, if it came, I mean, I would personally donate $5,000 a year towards the maintenance. I have no problem putting up my own money to do that if the city says we can't afford doing this.
Right.
And I think there's other people out there with me that would do the same. My whole goal in all this is my kids still live here. Hopefully my grandkids will live here, and the more stuff we can find to do we're a poverty-stricken county, and so the more things we can do without charge. I mean, last year we raised money, Bailey and I and a few other people, to allow kids to go to the pool. You know, we basically was free for 2 months because there's some kids that can't afford $3 a day, you know, and so when it's over, I mean, we can fundraise more if we need, you know. It's not like we're going to leave and say,
Right.
there you go, sorry.
No. Yeah.
So,
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie.
And thank you, Eddie, for with the weather, for driving all the way from Olathe. Ed, unfortunately, he didn't know that we had moved our commission meetings
oh, yeah.
off weeks. And I said, you know, you've got some great concerns. A lot of folks have called in with concerns and questions. And he said, you know, I said, you know what? Come on up and speak during public comments, and doesn't even live here full time yet. And we think it's great that you're investing in our community with what you've done with the buildings, and the fact that you would make that drive up there, and you didn't have, you know, unrealistic questions or anger or anything. You just wanted answers, and that type of involvement, you know, for someone that's not even here full time yet, is greatly appreciated by everybody in the town, everybody on the commission. Thank you.
Yeah, and anytime you have questions, you can reach out to. I'm pretty accessible, Eddie. So my phone number's out there. Anytime you have any questions before like this, I could have preface you, because I didn't think we were really going to vote on nothing tonight. Tonight's not the night that,
I didn't know. It was on the
and so no one asked me. So I probably could have saved you and probably answered questions, because you might have more questions next time. So appreciate you making the trip down. But if you reach out to me, yeah, I know we do appreciate you investing in our downtown, because I remember the downtown when there was 15 buildings empty. So it's made a quite change. People like you to invest in there. Thank you. Yeah.
Now we'd like to invite Mike Buller to the podium.
Hello. My main concern tonight is also the splash pad, as we have Barbara and Rose's Vintage Market uptown. Our concern is that the kids, after they're in the splash pad, are going to come up to the businesses and want to come through our stores, which is not really that pleasing to think about all that. And that's my main concern. Eddie brought up a lot of questions, a lot more than I had. So that's my main concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
And that will conclude our public comments for this evening. We'll move on to old business. Update on cost to move existing docks at the Lake Fort Scott.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I reached out to the vendor that is going to be putting in the new docks, and they said that they would move the docks where you would like them at no cost.
Well,
They would just do that
praise
as
the
a-
Lord. That's awesome.
Hospitality thing, since they'll be out there putting the new docks in and moving them around as well. So,
Gee, we don't even need a motion for that because it's not going to cost nothing.
well, I'll put this to you. I do have a question for you. It's concerning the docks. We talked about putting one. There's an existing one down here.
Yeah.
Where would you like that?
Is there not one down there now?
Well, there's one down there. So I've had my crew the last week or so. They've been rehabbing it, put new boards and things on it. So it's decent shape, and I think we could move it somewhere else if you want the new one in that. Or
Well, if it's rehabbable, I didn't realize it was rehabbable. When we looked at it, so you guys.
yeah, we got out on it and checked all the floats and replaced quite a few boards and screws and made it so that it's in good shape to use. So if you wanted to move that one to a different location, we could do that.
Is there something wrong with its current location?
No, it's just
We
the
originally put the new one down there thinking that one couldn't be fixed, but since they fixed it,
That's where the new one is.
yeah, I mean, I'm good honestly wherever any of them goes. So
Okay.
I'm not.
So I will bring up, like I suggested at the last meeting, at what everybody calls the Mile Road, Hackberry Road. There's right down here. It's kind of like a boat ramp.
Mm-hmm.
We had a fish feeder down there last year, so there's a lot of fishing and activity goes on down there. So that would be my suggestion: is to put either not move the one from the north side down to the south side, but just move that one over to the Mile Road.
Yeah, because back in the day, that was used quite a bit in our boats. I mean, going down. So.
Yeah, it gets quite a bit of activity now. One of the homeowners, or a couple of the homeowners, have cleared some of the brush and trees along that road going down, access for their property, which has helped increase activity down there. So, again, it's just a suggestion. But
I'm good with it. I don't even think we'd need a motion for something like that. I mean, it's just an asset being moved.
No, I think we just direct you to use your best judgment.
all right. And then there is a Lake Advisory Board meeting this Saturday. So, I've already emailed them everything that you guys decided at the last meeting. I haven't heard anything about, locations or anything like that, but just advise them that that's the plan.
Yeah. But that whole us just telling you to use your best judgment, don't get used to that, Doug.
I won't.
I'm kidding. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Doug, while you're up there, can I trouble you with one question?
Sure.
I had some people reach out to me about whether or not we're going to continue with the PGA Junior League this year.
We are. So if you're following the golf course, Woodland Hills Golf Course, or the PGA Junior League on Facebook, registration opens February 1st, and the first practice should be the first week in March.
Awesome.
So I just put it on there today.
Just
about
today?
2
Okay.
hours ago.
Okay.
we were just notified as coaches when the registration opened. So,
Awesome. All right, I'll let them know to check out the Facebook page.
and if anybody has questions about junior league, reach out to the golf course, myself or Dustin Fowler, or Andrew DeFabal is also a coach. He can answer some questions as well.
Okay.
And do you ever, just quick question, do you ever, any of the kids ever need any, I mean, do you ever see them not be able to afford it? Do you think it's limited, like, we could use some donations for some kids that?
So the program could always use donations, just like anything else that deals with the youth. Last year, you guys were good and kept the cost down. None of our coaches are taking coaching fees. The PGA of America actually gave us the course fees that you guys set at $1,500 last year, so as a donation. So the kids didn't have to incur any of those costs. So the only thing the kids are into it this year so far is the $99 for the PGA fee, and that includes their jerseys and their hat and the bag and just a good time every Tuesday.
How many kids did you have last year?
Last year we had 34. We had 34 signed up. Now some weeks we had 40. So it was hit and miss, but we had a really good turnout, and the parents were just great. When we tried to do our inter-club matches there at the golf course, the galleries that followed these kids around, we had 30, 40, parents and grandparents and brothers and sisters, following each of the groups around. It was a really good time for the kids.
Awesome. Well, thank you for putting that on, and we're excited to hear it's going to happen again this year.
Yeah, it should be good.
Thank you,
So
Doug.
as far as I know, all the same kids from last year are going to sign up again this year. So, except for the ones that have aged out, we had a few 15-year-olds that are now playing high school golf, so they don't qualify for junior league anymore.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doug.
Item B is Dave's Demolition retracted the bid awarded for 523 South Heilman. Consideration to go out for bids again.
And Brad, could you cover for us just real quick again why that bid was retracted?
Did you receive the phone call or didn't they, Thomas? Was Thomas here?
No.
So the reason I heard was they did not know there was a basement, so they retracted their bids. That is, that's what I heard.
Okay.
Here's one thing when they get the bid sheets, they can call in and ask. Just like any other bid, supposed to ask questions. Is that right, Thomas?
Or they're
So-
supposed to go out and look at the job
Look at
site
the
as
job.
well.
I don't know what we can do in the future, but there needs to be some.
We have it in the actual bidder's instructions after an issue that we'd had over off of Hill Street that talked about the requirements for filling in basements and stuff like that. So I'm just saying going forward for anybody, no matter who the bidder is, and I'm not going to call the bidder out by name, but when you've got a contract that says we'll be required to fill the basement, compact the basement with the right soil, I would most certainly verify whether or not the home I was bidding on had a basement in it or not.
I don't know how we stop this from future. I don't know if we can ban a bidder from bidding for 3 months or 6 months or something. Because this takes time. Lisa's got to send these out. It all takes time and money.
Well, my question would be, did the next highest bidder or the next lowest bidder, were they aware of the basement?
Well, that would be my motion. My motion would just be go with the next highest bidder if they're good with it. Say, hey, you're awarded if you still want this. So my motion is to offer this to the next highest bidder instead of sending it out for bids again.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thomas, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I was just going to add that the way the code is written around that says that if the individual who had first won the bid doesn't get it done within a certain time frame, which obviously that would apply in this situation, then it would go to the next highest bidder.
Okay, so it's already, that step is already within our existing codes. Okay.
I would think so, yes. And I had heard two different things on that. I had heard the basement is what was the issue, but I was also told by people that were the neighbors to that when Dave showed up there, there was when Dave went to do his walkthrough the house to make sure that it was empty. There was actually someone in there, and there was about a 20-minute long altercation between the two of them. I don't know who was there, but he basically then walked back outside, loaded his equipment back up, and left.
Okay.
So
We've got law enforcement that can take care of that.
Yes.
That's not a very good excuse to me.
yes, I don't know
So,
all of the facts behind it, what is
No.
or isn't true, but that's the two versions I had heard.
All right. Well, thank you, Thomas. Lisa, we have a motion and second. I think we can go ahead and vote on this.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Edwin Woha,
Yes.
Josh Jones,
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes. Item C is consideration to go out for demolition bids on 1107 West Sixth Street.
Boy, that's a tricky one, and Thomas, you might want to be ready to come up again. I mean, that's the old ice house, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And I think originally, I mean, that demoing that one building could pretty much wipe out our unsafe structure budget.
for 2 years or 3.
Yeah, for 2 to 3 years,
Yeah.
which is one reason why we tabled it until tonight.
Yeah, that is correct.
We tabled it for the land bank to look at, or the city to look at.
She offered it to the land bank, yes, and they don't want it. I mean, it's a big building. I mean, it's going to be a.
My suggestion would be to go out for bid, and we don't have to accept the bids. I mean, then we can
Exactly.
see, we have an idea that way of what
Yeah.
it's gonna be.
But we've gotten some ballpark figures from a few folks on.
I'd heard rumors anyway, but it sounded about what I would have expected them to be.
I heard on the low end 40,000. I heard on the high end 80,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if,
Either way, that's my budget.
I would move then if, you know, I don't have a problem going out for bids. Move to go out to bid for the demolition of the unsafe structure at 1107 West Sixth Street.
Yep, I'll second that. And if we could, whenever, just next meet, or whenever this comes back, and we can just get what our budget is for the year and how much is left in there, just.
Edwin Woha,
Yes.
Josh Jones,
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes. Item D is an update on the Brick Street policy that was tabled from 1/24/23. Bob Farmer, have you had a chance to review the policy?
I have. I don't want to make light of your draftsmanship. No one will ever call Matthew a man of few words, ever. There intrinsically is nothing wrong with the policy. If you view it in the terms of guidance, the implementation is the tricky part. And I think that's where Commissioner Van Hookey has been focusing his efforts, and I don't want to speak for him. But I guess I looked at that thing and thought, well, I could strip this down and do it a lot fewer pages. But it's a guide. It's not cast in concrete. It's nothing that it's a guide to the point that if we don't do it, okay, there isn't any penalty for that. So that's my comment.
We are lucky enough to have someone in the audience that wrote a Brick Street policy for the city of Atchison here today. I just found out. I don't know. He's actually here for something else, but so I don't know if you can offer any insight on the policy you had in Atchison or not. Okay.
I think I did a little bit more digging too as I went into this because, you know, as I promised, you know, before the last meeting, I did read it several times, forward and backward, trying to get my head around. And so then I did a little bit more digging and got into the code of ordinances that we already have in place out there, which unfortunately I don't think to any point that I recall that they're being enforced as they should be.
No, sir.
So if I go in there and I've just kind of, I know I asked Lisa to provide you guys all copies of this tonight. If I go in there, I've highlighted some points in here. And first of all, you know, it's unlawful for any firm, person, corporation to remove, destroy, cut, or encumber any sidewalk, alley, curb, gutter, or any improved surface of any street or alley to make an opening and excavation. Says I've got to come in and get a permit. And when applying for the permit, the application, they need to show the city the necessity for such work and the nature of the work proposed to be done, as well as pretty much the size of the work, and upon approval thereof of the city provided. So then we get into the permit. And under that, it states that to get that permit, that a person, firm, or corporation is first filed with the city clerk a surety bond in the amount of $2,000. And we all know what that's for, and that's in case they don't put things back the way they're supposed to be. Moving on to section 12.12.40, permit fee. Individual applicants for such permit, provided that said work is approved by the city, will be issued a permit at no cost. That's a good faith thing on our part to say, hey, we expect you to put this back the way it was, exactly as it was. That goes into safety requirements. Then when you move down to 12.12.60, the permit holder shall repair or replace the same at his own expense, and he shall be liable on his bond for the satisfactory repair of the same. If the total amount of the bond is inadequate to make satisfactory repairs or pay damages which may have been sustained, the permit holder should be liable for any additional amount. Under no circumstances should the permit holder be considered as an agent of the city. And all work or repairs shall be done under the supervision of the Public Works Director. Moving on, now we had an ordinance, and I'll get to that in a second, and I'm curious as to why it was changed. Moving on to 12.12.90, and I'm just hitting the hard, I don't want to read 5 pages of stuff here. So, it shall be the duty of any person, firm, or corporation making an excavation in any of the improved or unimproved streets, alleys, or other public grounds to restore it to its original condition within 14 days from the commencement of work or the date the permit was issued, whichever occurs first, and to maintain the same for a period of 6 months, meaning that once they've repaired it, up to 6 months, we shouldn't go by and see things sinking back down into the ground again. If restoration is not complete, the same person, firm, or corporation will be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor, and upon conviction will be assessed a penalty of $150 per day for each day that restoration is not completed. And if the site is not properly maintained 6 months following replacement, there'll be another $150 fine. Now here's the real kicker. It states in here that the Public Works Director or any other city official so designated by the city manager shall be responsible for monitoring, ensuring that all excavations, openings, cuts in streets, alleys, sidewalks, curbs, and gutters are in accordance with the provisions of this chapter. And those are really the highlights on that. But what really, the first time we tried to look this up, I was getting some help down here at City Hall. There used to be an ordinance number 3489, which fell, the section that concerns me that it was actually taken out late last year is regarding replacing the bricks. So if you look at what Lisa gave to you today and you go into 12.12.110, it tells you that that section's reserved. But if you go to 3489 under 12.12.110, calls out again excavated parking on any improved street, alley, gutter, sidewalk, etc., etc. Says all bricks replaced shall be provided with a 3-inch concrete subbase. In all brick streets in the city, all 4 inch subbases removed. City Commission took that requirement for the concrete, and I verified this with Bob. It doesn't. They repealed it. So we have an existing ordinance that says you've got to replace it the way it was, but the requirement on the concrete under 3489 no longer exists. It was an ordinance that was repealed in 2021. So that's that piece of it. I mean, I think that in my opinion, rather than a policy, I think we'd be a lot better off if we were enforcing the ordinance, which is more than a policy, that's already on the books.
Well, and this was Pete's point exactly during our conversations, is that we don't need a new ordinance because we already have ordinances on the books that deal with exactly this. Therefore, we don't need an ordinance that deals with any of this. That's why we decided to present a policy that helps the city have a roadmap or guidelines for starting to address which streets we would like to save as brick streets and which streets we don't want to save as brick streets. And that is what the brick street policy deals with. I commend you on looking up these ordinances that Pete had brought to everyone's attention a couple of years ago and brought to everyone's attention again last year, because these are valuable ordinances that the city must uphold in order to maintain our streets throughout the town. And that is exactly what these ordinances deal with, and that is exactly what the city should be doing, is enforcing these ordinances. However, Commissioner, I would like to point out that the roadmap policy that has been presented has nothing, zero, to do with these ordinances or with any other ordinance. This policy simply provides the commission and the city a roadmap on how to start forming a list of roads that we wish to consider brick roads we want to save, and then identify brick roads that we do not think are worth saving. That's what the policy puts forth in its guidelines and its roadmap.
I see a lot more of stuff other than designating specific streets in the documents that you presented to us before. Everything from cleaning bricks, palletizing bricks, contractors' requirements to do the same, whether a street is 35% or less, 35% or more, right down the line. Where to me, again, and I'll tell you, I took it a step further, Matthew. I've had a gentleman call me on the phone after watching our last meeting that worked for the gas company from 1970 to 2006, and after their work used to have to replace and repair the bricks for 36 years. And I think that for any contractor that's coming to town, or anybody that gets that policy, because if it's a policy, I'm assuming we're going to hand it to the contractor. Are you going to expect them to be able to read through that and immediately understand every single requirement that's in there the way it's written? Why not integrate some of those policy features, including taking 3489 and building them into an actual ordinance?
If that's something that the commission wishes to do, I will commend the commission and say that is definitely something we should 100% do. But again, an ordinance is completely different from a policy. And so since we're talking about the policy this evening, unless there's any other questions and we need to have a work session to go through the policy for a clearer understanding of what the policy says, I'll ask and entertain a motion from the floor.
Well, I had one more item before we talked about the motion. Did you get a chance to review, when we're talking about policies and repairs on the streets, to review the document that our Mr. Dickman provided to the commission?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And that is a standards and specifications that would be for contractors, and that would be what we would give to the contractor when they came to town.
Okay, but if you do that, under section 104, paving installer qualifications, 2 years minimum experience with at least 50,000 square feet of sandset brick pavers installed. So how many of the contractors that come in here to run fiber optic or do whatever is going to have somebody on staff?
If they are any worthwhile contractor, and I will reference Bentonville, Arkansas, there's a much stouter requirement in their standards and specifications, and they have zero problem with their contractors complying or repairing their brick and cobblestone roads.
But again, Bentonville, Arkansas, and Fort Scott, Kansas, as far as size, capabilities, revenues, is apples and oranges.
We should care just as much about our roads
I'm
as
not talking about
Bentonville
caring. I'm not
does.
saying nobody cares, but I'm saying available resources to do it.
The same companies that work down there, a lot of those same companies work here.
Well, I've just wanted to get
Yes, sir.
my concerns across regarding this.
Yes.
I think that the policy would be confusing. I think that the policy would not have the adequate amount of teeth that, believe it or not, I wish that it had as well. And I would rather take and make sure before I think we go and put something new out there that we're going to expect folks to go by, we set an example by enforcing the ordinances that are already on the books. And I think that if we're going to look for somebody, then maybe we do look around to see who in this town has done this before and done it correctly, and get some more feedback from them on it as well. Like I said, I wish the person that had talked to me would have agreed to come to the meeting this evening. But again, he wanted to express his opinion and his concerns about the subject.
And we value those and we appreciate it. Do we have a motion from the floor?
Bob, did you see any concerns with any of this, or what was your?
It is a little confusing, I will admit that, but it's nothing in it that's harmful. I guess was my.
So you see no objection to us adopting this as a policy?
Right.
And then what would be, if we wanted to clean up some of the language and try to take some of the confusion out of it, what would be the process for moving forward with that?
Well, I think what you do is you adopt it as policy. And then as those confusing parts come up, and we aren't going to know anything about it at this table, Brad will know about it at his end, whatever, and when those issues come up, then I think that's your opportunity to strike or add or include or whatever. That's
clean up some of the
and I
policy
don't know how you do it without implementing it.
Brad, you've reviewed it from maintenance, from for bandwidth for your folks to do. Do you see anything in the policy that's could potentially affect what you're trying to get done negatively?
No, because we don't deal with the contractors except they need to come
No, I
in
mean,
and
it's
get
but
permit. For us,
for you, because you had stated that a lot of these cuts that are being done that need to be repaired, and this policy does put additional requirements on.
Well, it goes back to how you're putting them in. I mean, that's the way. And you got a policy, you've got standards to follow. You know, who you talk to did it 35 years ago versus what we could do now. Bottom line, the road's a road, brick's a brick. It's according to how you put them in. You've got one opinion versus another opinion. We all have opinions. As long as you have it on the paper and we follow it, I say if you guys adopt it, we have to go with it. I think your contractors are going to look at, when you hand them that thick of a book of papers, they're going to look at it and say, whew, might not want to do business here.
Especially in Fort Scott, because guess what we usually hand them?
Not much.
Nothing.
Yeah, not much.
Yeah.
So,
Our roads
I mean,
have paid their
it's
price.
you know, our guys have read it. We've had some concerns because, you know, of staffing. Hopefully we can get that improved with a brick crew. But, you know, as long as we're consistent, that's all I'm going to say, is just be consistent. If you want concrete underneath the bricks, we'll put concrete in the bricks. If you want a AB3 underneath the bricks, we'll do that. But we're going to be consistent. You know, we're working hard to start getting permits. I mean, if you see a contractor on the road, they should have a permit.
And then you're going to who's going to have the accountability on the contractors that are here on as far as the ordinance enforcement of the, you know, fixed correctly within 14 days, and then the fines, and then
Well,
right now it says
when you say 14 days, what are you?
in the ordinance, they've got 14 days to make the correct repairs after the work is done or the permit has reached its completion, and then it's got to be monitored for 6 months after that in case they got to be called
Now, if
back.
you got extensive water leak, I'm not so sure 14 days is a very long time
No, I'm
to
talking
put
about
bricks back
contractors.
in.
I'm talking about contractors. If somebody's coming in here,
Oh, well, once we get the permit, or once they get the permit, we'll know when they started.
and that will
And
be
we'll
public
send,
works or codes.
that'll be codes that gives them the permit. And
No, I
then
mean, the
I would say codes will go out and follow up with them. Yeah, we can't afford to take away from our public works. And really with 2 codes guys, we really can't
But on
afford
the
that,
bright
but if
side-
that's their job, they'll
Bright
do
side
it.
in the future, the work Public Works is doing is a direct result of not enforcing policy before. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, we have potholes, a lot of things have been neglected. So we say we can't go out and check it, but inspection is the number one reason to stop.
You say it's a double-edged sword because you're right. You're getting contractors and ourselves. So
And the final thing I'd like to point out is that in section 4.3 of the policy, it does clearly state the area of disturbance should be repaved in accordance with the city standards. So this policy is referring back to these ordinances that you brought forth this evening, because that was exactly what Pete Allen had expressly said multiple times when I was talking with him about this, was there was no need right now to rewrite any ordinances. The ordinances that we have on the book take care of all this. So that's why this policy refers back to these ordinances for what we're going to use as our standards and specifications.
My question would be then, are they supposed to be putting concrete underneath the bricks or not? Because that section of the ordinance 3489 was repealed from the existing ordinance.
I'm going to do some research into that because I don't remember us ever voting to remove that.
Okay. Well, I'll give you my copy of this one.
Oh, I know the ordinance. Yes, sir.
Okay, it's 1212, section
Yep.
110. And
Yep.
And if you look at the document that I gave you for tonight under 1212.110, it's now reserved and actually references that an ordinance replacement of materials and exceptions derived from ordinance 2563.
Yes. No, and I would like to look into that because, to my knowledge, this commission last year never voted to overturn that ordinance.
I'm going to go ahead and make, I mean, because it's a difference of opinion, so we can sit here and debate this forever. So I'm going to make a motion to accept the brick policy as presented.
I second the motion.
Josh Jones. Tim Van Hookey.
Respectfully, no.
Edwin Wolhoff.
Yes, but I would just like to say, here is kind of where I land with all of this. My concern with the brick policy was that we didn't have the teeth to enforce it. This, in my mind, gives it the teeth, and what I would like to see come out of this policy is that we have a moderate understanding of what we're going to restore to brick, and that we don't just necessarily say every single brick street in Fort Scott needs to be back to brick, and we don't just asphalt over everything either. So, yes.
And Matthew Wells.
Yes.
Can I ask a question about what Edwin just said?
Yes, sir.
Who's doing that determination if we are putting bricks back in, or if we're going to? Are we going towards the historic?
According to the policy, we'll have three designations. One will be a special character streets, one will be a historic streets, and one will be a Save Our Brick Street program. These will be under the determination and advisement of the Street Advisory Board. So according to the policy, we now task the Street Advisory Board with presenting these streets to us within those categories, and then the commission will vote if we agree with those streets being in those categories, and then we'll list them. I have a master list that I was able to put together with the help of Pete Allen and a couple of others that labels which streets in town are currently brick, which streets are currently brick under asphalt, and it lays out every street in town and what the substrates are. So we have a master list for them to go from, and then the Save Our Brick Street program would be streets throughout the community in the residential areas that citizens want return to brick streets, and then we can make a sub list of your roads that our citizens wish to have returned to brick streets or wish to have repaired as brick streets. So again, we'll start compiling a list now based on this policy, using our Street Advisory Board as an advisement board to give us the list of streets, and then that will be presented back to the commission for us to vote on.
I don't want to drag this on, because
Yes,
we're on a pretty good roll right now. But you say citizens that want to see brick streets stay brick.
Yes.
How many citizens are we polling to determine that?
Those citizens will be allowed to come to the Street Advisory Board and present their case. Again, that
Okay.
will all be done by the Street Advisory Board.
As long as we're hearing everybody.
Yes, sir.
That and being consistent.
Yeah.
And I would like to see the Street Advisory Board create a map instead of just writing them out.
Yes, sir.
Because a map would be a lot easier to read.
No, I think that'd be an excellent idea. And according to the policy, any road that sees more than 3,000 cars per day cannot even be considered. So like we talked about the other week, streets like, unfortunately, Broadway, 6th Street, Horton, National, those streets can't even be considered because the amount of traffic and the truck travel on those streets, according to the policy we've now adopted, says that those aren't streets we can consider saving at this point. It's just not viable.
So then, I guess the last thing I would like to say, since it's been referenced a couple times, is
Yes, sir.
within the policy, it references the Brick Street Advisory Council or Committee.
Mhm.
That's not an official recognized
No, sir, it
organization
was not.
within the city of Fort Scott.
No, it was not.
The
No,
Save
sir.
Our Brick Streets group is
No.
also not an officially, as far as the city goes,
No, sir.
recognized organization. Now, the Street Advisory Board Commission
Yes, sir.
absolutely is.
Yes.
But I am still a little bit concerned about, we voted on approved a policy that says per the Brick Street Advisory Council or Committee. That is what our policy is based on. That this group that's not a recognized entity like the Street Advisory Board, that we voted on the policy that was per the Brick Street Advisory Committee that you said
Yes.
was made up of yourself and Pete Allen and a previous city commissioner.
Yes.
Okay, that's just wanted that
No,
thrown in.
and to your concern, last thing, and then we'll move on. This policy was presented to the Street Advisory Board. They did sign off on it and say that this was a policy that they could get behind before I brought it back to the commission.
Okay.
I took this exact policy, handed out to every Street Advisory Board member, asked them for their input, and got
Then
their
why didn't
blessing.
we get that presented to them and added from them as the advisory board to the agenda?
We're going to move on. Yes, sir.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions. We can have a work session and go over everything.
I'm for
Right.
that.
All right. Item number 2 under there was traffic counts. I'm assuming that was a question about the traffic counts and the policy, which I answered, is set at 3,000 vehicles per day. Brick specifications, Jason Dickman.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I think you've seen it before, but I guess at this point, it's going to kind of piggyback with the policy and whatever ordinances. What I would like to make sure is that the ordinances do not contradict the spec and vice versa, which also ties back to the policy or the guidance. So I guess I want to, take an opportunity to go between now and the next meeting, kind of go through the policy a little more in depth, and maybe if there's stuff that's redundant or needs cleaned up, I can make recommendations as city engineer. And then I hear there's some questions on some of the items in the clay brick paver specifications. So if you have any comments, just send those to me, and we can kind of chase that down and come to a reasonable solution. If we don't want concrete underneath, that's a choice we need to make a decision on. So I like the idea of a work session that might help clean up some things, but I just want to marry everything up. So after talking to Tim earlier, it sounds like there's a couple items we need to kind of look at in the spec, which is fine. And then the policy can be kind of cleaned up a little bit and clarified. The only thing, I guess, outside of that, I think I sent it to Brad, but KDOT has their traffic count maps. Did you see that?
Yes, sir.
So I'm a little leery on the 3,000 vehicles per day being still kind of high. I know you've already said that's down from other examples, but that may be still high for this size of city, but that could be another topic of
yes,
discussion.
something we can amend. Yes, sir.
So I think I'm glad it's kind of moving forward, but it's still kind of work in progress. So any comments you have, send them to me, and we'll kind of compile and try to get everything, lined up.
And to your point, I would be happy to have a work session if the other commissioners are available and would like to decide upon a day. I think that is an excellent idea for us to go over these. I would like us to research and find out when that particular ordinance was abandoned by the city commission last year. because again, I do not remember it coming before this commission as a vote. So I need to do some research into that and find when we as a body voted to do away with that commission. or
Yeah, because that
ordinance.
ties. So I guess it was more than a year ago when we started talking about some of this stuff. You know, there's a variety of different ordinances, which I think all of them Tim referenced, that are giving contractors direction that it's fine, but that's what your specs are for. So the ordinance should refer to the specs. Because
Or vice
again,
versa.
either way, but they need to match at least.
Yes, sir.
So if there's something that says, which apparently is gone now, 3 inches of concrete, you know, then the spec should reflect the same. And when you go to your pavement spec, it should talk about it. So everything needs to be tied together. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Brad, could you have someone send us some emails to see if we can coordinate a small work session to go over these ordinances and see if we can work that out?
Sure, that's fine.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Item E is an update on the splash pad location. Josh Jones?
Yeah, just put a thing in there showing a general location, of what's probably be asked next meeting. So just give me any more questions or concerns, before, you know, the official vote on that we can go back. So, Tim's had some, say or email me over the next meeting, get some answers.
Yeah, I mean, I've been able to answer a lot of the ones, and when I saw update on splash pad location before the commission votes is how it's written in the agenda, I thought we were going to talk about it and then vote this evening.
Well, I knew you asked for it being staked out or whatever, and I had that time, we're waiting on lines and an actual design, they've changed the design, so, I just kinda, it could've been underneath my comments, but I just kinda wanted to put a general out there for you guys to see and put it actually in the packet, so.
But those were your stakes that were out there this morning, right? Okay.
So if anyone, I mean, I had asked that, next, meeting, we would vote on the proposed location, for the splash pad. Like I said, any questions beforehand, send them to me or whatever, try to get all the answers.
No, we've had, you know, a lot of people that have been pro and a lot of people that have had some real concerns. So, I mean, we're going to vote. If we're going to vote next meeting, I would encourage anybody to get your questions in to a commissioner ahead of time. And you do still have the option to come as the gentleman did this evening, you know, before we vote next week, come up for public comments and express your concerns.
I know it's not, we want to hear all the concerns, because that just helps. I mean, there's been ideas we've heard, that will help us. Like I said, this is the fourth or fifth location to pick, but yeah, absolutely, anyone.
Well, I think I've just about got Bob swayed that we can put it in his backyard.
Be a very small splash pad.
That's all I have.
Okay, if there's no other questions on that, Lisa, if you'll make sure that that's on the agenda for the next commission meeting, and then we can vote on that location. Next, we have appearances. Justin, how do you pronounce your last name?
Just don't say pregnant, we'll be friends.
Okay. Address us about the Van Fossen apartment project.
All right, I've got some portfolios here. So just kind of pass those around.
Thank you.
My name's Justin Prajant. I've been a local government professional for about 12 years, most of that back in my hometown of Atchison. In my time in Atchison, I was routinely frustrated by the opportunities for projects that I saw and got really tired of developers from Kansas City and Lawrence and other larger places telling me no. So I decided to figure out how to do those myself. So my combination of background in managing public works projects, utilities, different facilities that the city of Atchison had, writing every kind of grant that's available for local governments, transportation alternatives, CDBG, you name it. I've been involved in it. The real linchpin for me getting into this was there's a beautiful old 1913 era YMCA in downtown Atchison, and there was a really awesome project to build a new one next door to it, still attached to it. And I started to hear some community conversation about, well, maybe we should just tear that old one down. It's a beautiful kind of Victorian, really imposing, impressive building. Maybe we should tear that down for parking. As the party responsible for doing a lot of the economic development in Atchison, that made my head want to explode. And so I sought out to try and figure out how to make a project work there. So what we now call 1913 Apartments in Atchison was a project that we put together there. It was a 17-unit project. We filled that building less than 30 days after getting our certificate of occupancy. It's been really wonderfully successful. We have a waiting list, several hundred names, and email addresses of people that have inquired about getting in there. Not every one of them would take it, so I don't mean to oversell it, but it was a really successful project, and so much so that I thought, well, I really loved doing that. I really loved working on the Fox Theater project, which is a nonprofit deal in downtown Atchison. There's only so many historic buildings in Atchison, and so I started kind of touring around the state, and I would have people send me pictures of real estate listings. So on the last page there, you saw a project that I've got that's about halfway through construction out in Hayes called the Frontier Apartments Project. It's a 12-unit project in an old Catholic elementary school that was being surplused. And so this seems to align the sort of project history that I've done with a lot of the needs that have been identified throughout the state. I think there's a lot of alignment with things coming out of like the state's Office of Rural Prosperity that talks about downtown redevelopment, and talks about housing need, and talks about quality of life and things like splash pads and all of that. All of these things kind of dovetail together. And so the types of projects that I tend to be attracted to are in downtown districts. They tend to have a residential component. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the building that I'm looking at here. But usually what I'm doing is layering different incentives on top of each other. State and federal historic tax credits, which I don't know if anybody's told you this. All of a sudden, your historic district looks a lot more attractive because the state of Kansas during last year's legislative session took those credits from 30% to 40%. Without them doing that, quite frankly, I probably wouldn't be here. But that puts you in pretty rarefied air of being a really sizable city in the scheme of things in this state, but also falling underneath the threshold to meet that standard. Last legislative session, the state of Kansas also unveiled something like $60 million of new housing resources. And I don't, some of the, well, I'll say moderate income housing resources. So everybody, most places that I go immediately assume that what I'm talking about is some sort of low income housing development. That's generally speaking a program that can be good, but that's not the program that I dip into. The income band that the resources that I chase is called moderate income, and it goes from 60% to 150% of median household income. So in a community like Atchison or Fort Scott, that's going to be from people that make $35,000 usually up to about 100. So our tenants in the buildings that we do usually wind up being a mix of downsizing retirees, teachers, nurses, cops, insurance professionals, folks who are in that kind of quintessential Americana income band, like those really those jobs that everybody thinks of when they think of like good, hardworking people. So I'll tell you a little bit about the specific buildings here that I've got my eye on and what that project looks like for me and why it is that I'm here telling you about it. So 19 and 23 South Main Street. 23 South Main was at a lot of people locally probably know it as the old JCPenney building. The upper floors are currently housing a pigeon graveyard, as well as one hawk. So we have the full ecosystem of graves on the second and third floor. There are still the glass panels that have the optometrists and the chiropractors' names on the second floor of that building. The third floor at one point would have been a sizable Masonic hall. As well as a couple of other uses, and the ground floor has always been retail. I do want to quickly reiterate that I have no intention of altering the uses of the ground floor, while the occupant of those spaces could conceivably change. I don't have any reason to want that. I don't consider myself a commercial space developer, but as somebody who cares about downtowns, I do recognize that housing on the ground floor of buildings that face Main Street is not the highest and best use. So my interest here in the project that I'm describing are exclusively on the second and third floor, although I will also mention that the main entrance to the apartments that I'm proposing would be off of the side street, not off of Main Street. So I can imagine every place that I've ever been in rural Kansas anyway wants to talk about parking. I imagine this wouldn't be any different here. The main entrance would be off the side. I understand there's an underutilized city parking lot there, and and there's double angle parking on both sides of that street. We can get into that conversation in more detail if you want to, but generally speaking, that's what I'm looking at. The project that I'm contemplating is several $1 million. That type of investment and the rents that you would have to charge, that gap is why this project hasn't happened yet, because you can't spend $3 or $4 million on a project and get 50 cents a square foot in rent and make any money, and nobody, no matter how much money they have, is just going to voluntarily give it away like that. So the structure of my deal is aimed at trying to fill in enough gap to get and have a high enough appraisal that you can borrow a little bit of money, monetize the state historic tax credits, return some of the federal historic tax credits to the investors, get some gap grants from the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation, and when it's all said and done, you have a marginally profitable building that's worth substantially more than it is today. To make this happen is a really extraordinary partnership that's required. The State Historic Preservation Office is absolutely a partner. The State Department of Commerce has to be a partner. Obviously, I'm the one here pitching it. I'm considered the sponsor or the general partner of the deal, and then there has to be a local government sponsor. The critical path and the exercise that I'm currently going through is to evaluate the viability of this project and also to try to win the award from the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation that's necessary to make it happen. The historic tax credits are the most powerful and largest value incentive here, but that's a by right program so long as you follow their, again, extraordinary requirements in terms of historic preservation, construction quality, all of those things. In terms of ceiling heights, press tin restoration, woodwork restoration, it's a really extraordinary standard that you have to meet to have access to those programs. But if you meet that standard, it's a by right program. So I don't need your partnership or permission to pursue that program. What I do need is your partnership and permission to pursue what's called a Rural Housing Incentive District, and also to apply to the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation for those funds. The RHID, Rural Housing Incentive District, is a property tax abatement program. It allows, historically in Kansas, it's mostly used to build new subdivisions. Pittsburgh uses it all the time, Dodge City uses it all the time, and they mostly use it to build new subdivisions on the edge of town. 2 years ago, the state legislature now allows RHIDs to be used to reimburse a developer for building expenses on the second and above floors in downtown districts. They allow you to enact those. It has to be approved by the Secretary of Commerce, but a local government has to sponsor that and approve of it. The reason for that request is that, quite frankly, this just doesn't produce enough cash flow to pay a full load of new appraised property taxes. You can't afford to pay a full load of property taxes and a full load of debt service on an investment of this size. It just doesn't work that way, and that's why they designed this program, is to allow for that. The program allows you to go out to 25 years. I think that's a little bit excessive, so the request that I would throw your way would be a 20-year RHID. The second thing that I need your partnership and permission on is a resolution of support for what's called a moderate income housing award through the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation. Those applications for this round are due on February 17th. This specific round, the RFP, which was published about a month ago, identifies that they are planning to concentrate on communities smaller than 10,000 people, of which you are one. So the project needs, I tell people sometimes putting together a project like this is like a 20-ring Venn diagram. If we lose one of the rings, I can't do it. And we can sit down in a work session. I can show you all the math, and you can tell me if you want to invest in it or not. But especially what's going on with interest rates and things, it's really difficult to get this kind of thing to pencil. It's why it doesn't happen very often, and it's pretty rare to see somebody pursuing these. But I'm perhaps foolish enough and aggressive enough to be pursuing this in some more communities across the state. So with that, I'm here today. It's January 23rd, 4th. What day is it? January 24th. You've got one more meeting, I believe, before the February 17th deadline. That gives you opportunity to digest this. My phone number, email address, all of it is on those papers in front of you. If you want, I wanted to put in. I imagine there's been some rumors about this or that you may have heard, so I wanted to put a name and a face and a portfolio behind the project, and ask for your support and answer whatever questions you might have, and then reappear before you in February to hopefully get resolutions of support for the two development incentives that I'm seeking.
My question would be, do you have the resolution already written, or do we need to write that ourselves?
I'll do all of that. It's template type stuff. So if there's somebody here that can plug in a resolution number, it's plug and go.
I will say there's any, it's my, have you worked with Rob at all?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's my understanding there might be 2 or 3 MIH applicants, so
yeah, sure.
we might, I don't know if we set aside.
Yeah, you get to support.
Time before.
You get to support one.
You support one. We've done, the last one I think was 2 years ago. We did MIH, if I remember right. And that's the same process they had to go through then.
Yeah,
it's 2 applicants then, you go support one.
Yeah, it's a little bit different now because KHRC is really ramped up. Given that they have so much more money than they used to, and you might think like, oh wow, that increases our chances for an award. Not really, because now all the folks out of Denver and Oklahoma City and Omaha and Springfield, like there's a lot more competition now, which is maybe good too. But it just because there's more resources doesn't necessarily increase our chances of an award.
Yeah, so if there's more of your details you can release without proprietorship, that would be helpful for us.
If you could send those to Lisa and she could get them out to us, because I mean, this is a great brochure and congratulations on what you've done in other locations. But again, when we're talking about relieving assessments and other applicants and RHID and stuff like that, I mean, I would like to get as much information ahead of time as I could before we vote on the resolution.
Sure. Yeah, I have at this point a draft sort of project description memo that includes some narrative about each of those incentives, as well as some of the projected financial information. At this point, I've got a 7-tab spreadsheet that's filled with dozens and dozens of assumptions, and over time, those assumptions become hardened, and the project either performs better or worse than you projected. So I've got my projections at this point of what it looks like, and I'm happy to share that memo and incentive request with Brad, and he can distribute it however.
Yeah, the sooner we get it and have time to review it, probably the better.
Yes, Jason.
I've dealt with some of those RHIDs, and have you already done the housing needs analysis for that, or is that?
You've got the housing study that you've got. Yeah.
We just had one done by Bourbon County Ready.
Yeah, it checks that box.
Presented tomorrow at the county meeting. Actually, they presented before, but actually be rediscussed tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll check that box.
The housing study, the retail and food study applies to this project as well.
Okay. Yeah, we appreciate you looking at us. Any certain thing bring you here, or just search in Kansas for?
Yeah, I'll say I have a friend in the community that's done some real estate work here, and my family is involved in some of his projects that he has elsewhere, and he was kind enough to send me the real estate listing on this one. So anytime I see a building that's historic, that needs some love, I at least travel for a day to have a look at it. And there's some difficulty to it. I mean, don't get me wrong, but it's got a real shot.
Is it the same friend that said you were the brick?
Maybe, I don't know. That doesn't sound like a friend.
All right. Well, Jason, I appreciate you very much coming. I assume that we'll see you here at the next commission meeting.
Yeah, that's my hope. I'll forward what you've requested, and we'll see where it goes from there. At this point, it's I'm out here on spec, so we'll see where it goes.
Bring your resolution.
You got it?
Just in case it gets passed.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be safe.
All right, there are no public hearings this evening, so we'll move on to new business. Item A, consideration of a crosswalk and signage to be painted on the alley roadway existing onto Wall Street from Common Ground drive-through.
Yes, I know exactly where they're talking about, and being someone that walks dogs downtown every night, goes up Wall Street, there either needs to be a crosswalk and a sign or even mirrors that are put up so that you can see blindly if there's a pedestrian or whatever. So if Thomas, I'm assuming you've looked at it and you're recommending the crosswalk and the sign, no mirror.
Yeah, it was brought to my attention a few months ago, actually by a sign company out of Pittsburgh, because they had been contacted to make signs that were intended to be hung on the, off of the edge of the buildings. But due to the passageway space there and there wouldn't be enough space or room to put those signs to have them there, as they would be an intrusion into the space for the vehicles to pass through. So we were looking at multiple other options. I think included in the packet that I'd sent over, you had a copy of what the signs that they were planning to order in place were. And I'd been through speaking with multiple different people here in different departments and so forth to try and find an option. We were discussing, I think probably the easiest one that I had come to mind was putting this as like painted on that alleyway and the crosswalk across the sidewalk. There's already been multiple near misses that were brought to my attention, and we're just trying to find a way to make that feasible, where we can draw some more attention to both the cars coming out of the alley and the pedestrians that would be crossing there.
And so the ask this evening is for the city to paint this.
Yes, looking over ordinance, and Brad and I had sat down and talked about and looked at that, and it would require us to do the work, where we can't allow private businesses or citizens to do that for us.
Brad, do we know exactly or approximately how much this might cost?
It won't, just to paint. It won't cost very much. Labor won't cost much.
Can we use our fancy new painting machine?
Whenever we get the paint, yes, we could actually.
My only concern is that you're not having something actually necessarily at the eye level of the operator of the motor vehicle. And there's nothing to stop the business owner from, by the drive-through, putting their own sign on their own building that advises people to please, as you pull forward. I mean, I've been in safety for 30 years, and the most common thing that gets missed is just what's on the ground. So I applaud the crosswalk there, but I think I would like you to go back and work with the business owner to see if right by their pickup window or something, if they could put something on the wall to emphasize at eye level for that driver.
That was their original intent, and I mean, I feel like for me to authorize that would be about as directly against.
No, you can't authorize it, but I mean, if they'll do it.
Well, that was their intention, but as I said, what we came up with, code does not allow for those signs to stick out into that alleyway.
I don't think.
No, I mean,
I think there's communication. He's not talking about sticking
flat
out.
against the wall by the drive-through pickup window.
I know they would. It's a matter of preference. It's a matter of preference for you guys how you wanted to go about this. I've been looking at trying to find ways that would satisfy everybody on it, and just wanted to present what I had come up with. So
sure,
more than happy to go back at it.
Would both of them be beneficial, Thomas?
I'm sorry?
Would both of them be beneficial?
I think any way you can draw attention to it would be. And I like the idea of the mirrors. I'm not sure how we would get them placed.
Well, depending on the size of the truck going down those alleyways too. I mean, you could lose, and those mirrors aren't cheap either. Trust me.
No.
But yeah, I mean, I think anything if the crosswalk is a great idea in the alley, but if the business owner is willing to put a sign by their pickup window at the drive-through to again, you know, at eye level of the driver to say, please, you know, be careful when exiting the alley, pedestrian crossing.
What does our ordinance say? Because like the drive-through window sticks out now. So what does our ordinance say about signs? I mean, you've seen those triangle signs that stick out just a few inches.
Yeah.
Call attention. I mean, does our ordinance say 1 inch?
It doesn't give a specified measurement. It just said that the signage could not interfere or cross into that public roadway.
Just a huge speed bump. Big one, 3 feet tall.
I had even talked to the sign company about, I know when I was in Phoenix and Portland, they had rubberized signs that would literally, you know, if the truck were to hit them or something, they would just flex and then come right back.
I mean,
but they didn't have.
It is a concern because there are kids that run up and down that street, and like I said, I'm an adult and I've had some close calls myself, walking east to west. I think it's actually east to west. I've had more encounters going that direction than I have west to east.
It's either way. It's kind of a completely blind.
Yeah.
Well, as far as what you've presented us this evening, I think it's an excellent idea, so we'll entertain a motion.
I don't think it needs a motion for something like this. I mean, I would just say that we'd direct you to do the crosswalk and to approach the business owner to see if they would allow us to put a sign by their pickup window.
Yeah, we'll take care of it.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to item B, consideration to increase the airport hangar rates. Seth?
Good evening, Commissioners. So you should have a piece of paper there with the background history of what the hangar rents have been, kind of how everything's gone through in the past, the square footage and everything. So tonight I'm coming before you. I've got 3 rates I'd like to increase: the spot rentals, and then Hangar 1 and Hangar 2. So I guess since you've looked over those, do you have any questions? In the past, right before COVID, I increased the hangar rents, and my intentions were to incrementally increase them every year. Well, then COVID hit, obviously, so I was trying to not impose upon people. Well, now I kind of feel like it's just time to rip the Band-Aid off and get it back to what market value should be. So if you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
I have no questions. I'd be willing to entertain a motion on this.
I'll make a motion to approve the new hangar rents as presented.
Is there a second?
So I was gonna say give them 60 days, because that's what we did last time, just to ease them into it. So April 1st, yes.
Second.
Tim Van Hookey?
Yes.
Edwin Woha?
Yes.
Josh Jones? Matthew Wells?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All that waiting for that.
Yep.
Man.
Thank you. It's all that hard work before
All right, item C, consideration of cost for the boat ramp.
This is the, you wanted to know how much it was going to cost to concrete the boat ramp that will be coming out of the boat or the lake fund, the sales of the lot. Jerry, street supervisor, said it would cost with the labor and concrete $2,740, not to exceed $3,500. So that's rebar, that's everything included.
I believe that's within your purview, and I think it's
Okay.
a good price. We do.
Because going out of that lake fund, yes.
All right. Well, we'll entertain a motion then.
I'll make the motion, to the boat ramp up to $3,500 to come out of the lake lot sale fund.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We vote with just the three.
We can.
All right. Edwin Woolhoff,
Yes.
Josh Jones, Matthew Wells.
Yes. Motion passes. Item D, consideration to go out to bid for the Gun Park RV bathroom renovations.
So you have two drawings. One of them's a really nice Excel. No, he took it out. Yeah. One of them's a really nice Excel drawing that shows the where the toilets and the showers and everything. And then you have a drawing that Jason did that shows all the specs and that really shows a lot of detail. It'd be metal roof, block building. One thing we will have to look to is sewer. We will have to come from the top of Gun Park all the way down for sewer. We can do that in-house. That'll be another topic that we'll discuss sometime in the future. It'll be ADA compliant, concrete floor with drains, and I'll work with Jason on getting all the verbiage. I just want to get approval to go out for bid.
The only thing I know when we talked to people in the park, one of their suggestions was bathrooms in there from one side, showers from the other, just because all the people down there with RVs and you have all the kids playing or whatever, walking around, getting the same thing. I don't know if that's possible or not, but that was one of the biggest concerns. So many people walk into the bathrooms and RVs.
One thing we could do is have a door just going straight into the shower from here, going into the bathroom here.
I mean, I guess my only thing is, I guess how this is situated as long, I guess.
Do like the showers.
Well, that was just a suggestion. I mean, I guess if anything, just make sure they enter from the east and not from the RV side, just because the majority of people in there are probably gonna go to the bathroom, I'm assuming. Maybe not, but then when you walk out of the shower, you can walk right around.
Yeah.
No, the way it's drawn
you
up
never know.
and
It's not in the book. It isn't in the book.
I would go with the
CAD drawing.
Yeah.
No, I like the way it's laid out because several of the national parks that I've been to, that's the way they do theirs with the bench on that end and then the door. So the people that are doing the shower walk in, close the door, and then that's your changing area. Go in and shower, come back out to the bench that's on the wall right there, and everything's enclosed.
Too soon, so there's enough. The door there.
Then if no one has any other questions, I would entertain the motion to use this CAD drawing to go out to bid.
I like I said, my only concern is the door space. To me, I think that's that good. It doesn't look like there's 5 feet there, maybe there is for the doorway. You see.
From the door. Like all
I'll get with Jason, make sure everything's good, and we'll go ahead. I know Parks Advisory meets Thursday, Lisa.
Correct.
So I'm sure we'll talk about some more too.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve this based on enough room for the 5-foot open. To go out for bid, or any major concerns with Park Advisory. That would go away for next week.
Yes. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So
probably be, well, we're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, I would think so. So, I'll amend it to have the bids due back by, when is the bids open? So the bids due back that Friday before? Is that,
They'll come, I think.
okay, something.
Till like 4 p.m. They all have to be in the front office. And then they'll come in.
So bids due that day at 4 p.m.
Bids are due February 28th at 4 p.m.
20th? 28th.
Do we have a second?
Tim seconded that.
He did.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Josh Jones? Yes. Tim Van Hooke?
Yes.
Edwin Woha?
Yes.
Matthew Wells?
Yes.
Item E is consideration to go out to bid on the Fort Scott Pavilion.
I believe we've gone over this several times, so I'd be willing to entertain the motion to go ahead and go out for bid and come back the same day as the other bids so that we can open them.
I'll make the motion, came out for bid, for the Fort Scott Pavilion. Bid due at 4 p.m. February 20th.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Tim Van Hooke?
Yes.
Edwin Woha?
Yes.
Josh Jones? Matthew Wells?
Yes. Item F, consideration of advertising for request for qualifications RFQ for the US 54 City Connecting Link Improvement Program.
Jason, can you actually talk about this? Can you? Okay. Make sure you could.
So this is for you were awarded the C-CLIP funds from KDOT for the Wall Street work to rebuild that road. So because it's the geometric improvement category, you have to go out for qualifications-based selection for design. So you're basically soliciting engineers to send statements of qualification to you guys. So I think I had a date in there, February 10th, which I think we're still okay. Because basically, some of the specifics, KDOT, they solicit this way for everything they do. So it follows their requirements, and I'll send the full packet to Lisa so she has all the special attachments that they have to send in. I think I've limited it to like 6 pages or something. So unless you want less or more, it's up to you guys because you'll have to review it and make a schedule from that. So all that is, basically that's what goes to advertise, and then we can email directly to, hopefully, I'm definitely interested in that as Earls Engineering, and then we can send it to, if you've got particular firms you want to send it to, that's fine as well, but it needs to go in the newspaper.
I would just suggest, Lisa, if you have your own list, I mean, the other people, so I just make sure everyone chooses that right now.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to, for RFQs, for the C-CLIP project.
And before, I mean, I'll second the motion, but before I wanted to ask now, under this project here, Jason, this is for them to replace the road. And if it goes from side to side, that means those parking lanes that are on Wall Street are gone, correct?
Correct. That's the concept that KDOT approved.
Yeah. Okay.
So we sent them both. We wanted to try to mill and overlay the whole road, which would have also included some patching, but that's very expensive to do patchwork. So they looked at it, and he came back, he said a couple weeks later, and drove it. He's like, man, we need to full replace. So,
But we're getting the money.
Yeah.
So it's a choice of either protecting the parking lanes at this point or paying to repair the road ourselves.
essentially. And the
Okay.
thought, and we worked with Kelly before he left a little bit about, let's look at, can we add parking on those side streets a little bit somehow in the right of way? So there's been discussions about how to mitigate some of those parking areas.
We're going to have to ramp up those discussions because there are some businesses that will be impacted by that down there.
Money is a factor, but I will also say that turning lane in the middle, right?
It will, yes.
Turning is needed as well.
Sure.
So it becomes a
But-
3-lane.
I've seen semis go over to the parking lanes.
Yeah, but Brad, we need to, with this coming down the road, those business owners down there that may or may not know that this is what this grant means.
Yeah.
Let's start working with them now proactively so that we don't impact their business. But I would second the motion.
And that was something else, Tim, that they found out when they were looking at, is that Wall Street is another one of those streets that is asphalt over brick. So there's
See Clip going to replace it in brick, Jason?
No, they're going to completely go down, I
We
believe.
will
Put this
definitely
proper
salvage
sub
that
base
brick
in. Yeah.
for you guys.
We might be able to salvage some of the bricks though. On a side note, to
So I
use.
would put that in mind.
Yes.
If we do the plans, that will be one of the requirements. Try to
And-
salvage as much brick.
And then they're also going to redo the curb and gutters and the sidewalks as part of this project, correct?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
I can't remember if it had sidewalk on one side or both sides. I have to look. That comes down to, if that was estimated a year ago, man, pricing. That's why, we went from all the way to city limits and looked at all that, and we cut it down into like a quarter to get down to that $1 million price tag at that time. So
Sure. And like I said, I understand the need, one need outweighs the other, but I want to make sure that for those folks that we're concerned, that we're being proactive before it happens to help accommodate them.
At least we have a motion and a second.
Edwin Woolhoff,
Yes.
Josh Jones, Tim Van Hookey.
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes. And item G, consideration of Memorial Hall steps restoration bid, award winner.
So yeah, the bids were open this afternoon. There was only one complete bid from Mid-Continental.
How many folks did we send this out to?
I sent it to 5 restoration contractors specifically, and it was advertised in the newspaper. So the only other information we got was a ready-mix company submitted prices for concrete.
For just the concrete.
So it wasn't a responsive bid. Unless the city was doing it themselves, maybe. I don't think they want to do that.
Well, I believe what we had, I know we're working through on a grant for Memorial Hall. We don't know when or if it might come through. I think for Memorial Hall repairs this year, I think that we'd actually put into the budget $125,000. And that wouldn't even cover what this bid response is right now. So we might have to think through this a little bit more, look at the grant, or look to see if would it make sense again, maybe a few months down the road, to go out and see if we get something different.
And I know that when we'd gone out for grant, to complement what Commissioner Van Hookey just said, is that we had planned on possibly using that money as part of our match within that grant.
Yep, and that's why, I had heard a lower number, a few years back. I wasn't in this seat yet, but I think the number somebody told me at one point we had come back to repair the steps was in like the mid to high 60s.
Yeah, and it was before this bid.
Yeah.
And it was the bid was kind of expanded because Midco kind of gave an estimate ahead of time, and it was down closer to that 100,000 range, but it wasn't doing everything that the bid required.
Yeah.
So they were in line with their previous numbers. And I think Brad asked if that price included doing work in the cold, you know, like when they did the work
Yeah.
at Hammond's, they
Yeah.
had the tinning, and I need to verify that, but
Sure. Well, my opinion is based on funding for now, and to your point, Jason, it might be in cold because of the weather and additional requirements that
60 days.
60 days, yeah. Yes, I'd say table it for 90 days. Well, no, 60 days before the warmer weather starts, yeah.
Do we have a second? Yes.
Yeah.
Josh Jones. Tim Van Hook.
Yes.
Edwin Wolhoff.
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate you. Appreciate you getting that shocking number for us. I'm kidding. Another one. Yeah, that one's not yours.
At this time, we'll ask for our wonderful interim city manager to give us his comments.
Wonderful. You lost me there. So I only have a couple things, so we'll get through it pretty quick. I do have 2 bids on an audio system for here. Edwin, have you gotten anything back yet?
No, I reached out to Ford AV and we got those pictures to them, but I've not got anything back
Okay.
to them yet.
So had a gentleman come in. He gave me a bid. If we don't want to change the camera, it's within my spending limit. We could do it now. If you want to do cameras to where you have a camera pointing both ways, it'll be over my spending limit. We'll have to probably go out for, competitive bids on that. So I don't know which way you want to go. If you want to wait for Edwin's company, that Ford AV that you reached out to, or if we want to just go audio now and wait for cameras later.
I think what you should consider is what type of system are we actually looking for? Are we looking for just an audio system? I have a feeling that Ford AV will come back with something that is a full conferencing system engineered for the road.
This has the audio, cameras, a bigger TV if you want that. Now that costs more. I can tell you the price, $82.16 for base audio. That's what the base audio is. Then camera splits extra, then the TV's extra also. We have 30 days before this quote goes out. They do it for Girard. They've done it for, they're working on Pittsburgh's
Do we need
courthouse.
2 cameras though? I mean,
That's what I'm asking. If
we could
you
use the existing camera we have with the system you're talking about, right?
Yes.
It is nice in the camera, but I think the main thing is the audio.
Yes. And these would be wired in. There'll be a box that's right down there on the floor. It'll be wired in. There'll be speakers. This comes with 2 speakers, one facing the crowd, one facing in. It'll be hardwired on the podium. So, I mean, it looks like a good system to me. Of course, Edwin, you probably know more about what kind of systems and stuff.
I've worked with Ford AV in the past and they did fantastic work.
Yeah.
My opinion off the cuff would be that we wait and see what they come back with. But
Okay. And that's fine with
that. It's fine.
Yeah.
And you said this one's good for 30 days?
Yes. They have everything. They don't have the TV, of course, and they have to order the cameras.
Is Ford AV hardwired or wireless?
I don't know. I haven't got any information as far
Okay.
as what their technical stuff.
My only concern with the hardwired, unless there's enough jacks in it, is there's times we have a lot more than just us around this table.
You get, I can tell you.
Plus, we have to.
You get 12.
We have to account for the one that will have to be hardwired at the podium for
Yep.
public speaking.
You
as
get
well.
12 of them. Is what you get. Well, I can just hold off and
yeah.
And I can push.
I'm gonna
maybe
give you.
get
I'll
me
give
something.
you a copy of this also, so you can kind of look to see what's all entails in that too. Just an update for street department. We are working on ditches this week. We did alleys last week. We're going to go ahead and change up a little bit next week since it's supposed to be so cold. You can't do bricks with the concrete. So we're going to go ahead and keep doing ditches and get that behind us. RV park, the parks guys are working on the RV park right now. The groundwork should be able to continue unless we get several inches of snow, but they've done a lot of work with it already. I know we just talked about the Memorial Hall steps. Saturday night, if you went up to Memorial Hall, I mean, it's been a while since I've actually gone to Memorial Hall and really looked around. And I made a list of things that we need to do to Memorial Hall to, one, make it safe, one, to make it to where we can hold events better. You know, that event Saturday was awesome, but it'd be more comfortable if the bathrooms were nicer and the dressing room had some locks on them and things like that. So that we won't talk about that. But so, you know, the steps is one thing, but we've got a lot of other work we need to do also. And, you know, but I was telling Josh, just walking up to that place Saturday night with the traffic going, hustle and bustle. I mean, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool that small town Fort Scott's got something heavy going on like that. So it was a pretty neat, and it was a great time. And I commend Josh for putting that on. I will have I gave it to Jason today. He's going to draw it up nice for me, the parking plan. So next meeting, I'll bring the preliminary. I'll bring a couple different options for the downtown parking plan for you guys to look at and see what your thoughts are before I go and take it uptown and talk to business leaders also. Other than that, I gave you my notes. I gave you also Snyder Electric. I gave you a copy of what their report was, so you can look at that and give me any kind of feedback you want on that. I wasn't around when they first took this out, so I don't know what the promises were. All I can do is show you what they said our savings have been through September of 2022. And I've built a pretty good relationship with the guy from Snyder because I've called him several times. So if you have questions, more than happy to call him. I mean, he'll come visit us whenever we need him to. He's a good guy to work with. Also gave you our AIP list. We're having staff meetings every week now. A couple different, I think I wrote you an email about it. In our staff meetings, we're doing a little bit different. One week is we talk about the agenda and we go through the AIP list, and AIP's action in progress report. Basically, it just says what projects you're working on, start date, expected completion date, who the director is, who the team lead is, because I don't want the directors to think they have to be on site for everything, because that's what we've got qualified people to do. And I feel if we can entitle our people to take the lead on some of our projects, that'll make them feel good, and plus give them experience as managers. So, and plus it tells us if a status report, complete, in progress, ongoing, whatever. And then the off week staff meetings, we're doing coaching training. We're looking at videos. We watched the video last week on change. We're also going through our action and progress report again, and we'll also just do some team building exercises with the directors. And I don't know if you guys have ever been involved in team building exercises, but it does create a really good team environment, and that's what we're working towards. And that is all I've got. Appreciate everything. Like I said, Saturday night was a great night. Fort Scott's, we're doing some good things.
I, for one, want to thank you very much for this right here. It is awesome to be able to see all the projects that our staff is getting done on top of working on water leaks and freezing weather at 8 o'clock at night. So thank you for putting this together for us.
Yes.
All right, next we'll have Jason Dickman with Earls Engineering.
Hello again. Just, I guess, updates on my report. Really, only update, I think we just finished utility plans for Horton and 6, so I'll send those out this week and get any comments from utility companies. There's not a whole lot of digging happening, so we didn't anticipate any conflicts, but as we've learned from 17th and Eddy, they show up once they start digging, so I'm trying to get ahead of those. I think that's it. Oh, and I will. So 17th and Eddy, the update on that. AT&T was finally in contact with the contractor. So we've looked at kind of their schedules. They're both AT&T and Kansas Gas are talking about 3 to 4 weeks to get design, they call it, which says nothing about actually moving things. So as they progress through their design, I'll keep pushing them to tell me when that's actually going to get relocated. Contractor
On that project, settlement of dirt over by the church. They need to bring more dirt over to the church. The ground is almost a foot lower than the sidewalk. It's settled that much already.
In front of the church,
yes.
Actual church?
Yes.
Okay, I'll see if they can get somebody out. Because on their schedule, as far as the contractor goes, they had to leave and start their next job. So right now, their in-between job would be March 1st. So if the utility companies aren't done by then they get to push further.
Okay, let me know what they say, and we'll do whatever we need to do.
And because they have to, I think I've mentioned it before, because they've got to come back, I did finally get an official change order request from them. So if we get the schedule tied down a little tighter, because I want to put the dates in there, we'll get that in front of you guys as well.
Jason, my one question was on the KDHE thing. Did they set us a date when we have to have that completed?
Or which one? The
water treatment plant.
Treatment plant. We haven't got that back yet.
Okay.
So we sent the response letter by the deadline. It was like 30 days. So that's been returned, and they didn't give us a time frame when they'd reply back.
All right.
So
Thank you.
they'll give us time. If there's something particular they really want to happen, they'll give us a time frame.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
All right, we'll proceed on to commissioner comments. Start off with Josh Jones.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. We got a few things. First, as Mike Wood said earlier, I'm glad to hear he's doing good. Pretty risky procedure with his good, so that's good. He's doing fine. Pretty. So he's been through a few of them, so some of the doctors haven't noticed. One thing I 2017, I believe. And so,
6 years ago.
we have no contract with dispatch right now. So right now, basically, city of Fort Scott residents are paying 90% of all the dispatch for the whole county. So that's probably we get it care of pretty quick. Building across the street, see where we're at on it. I know we talked about it before with the wall.
The separating.
Separating looks like, I don't know, actually, I don't know if it's structural or not, but we need to get in there. I don't know if it's something Bob needs to work on. You might be asking for.
Didn't we send them a letter?
Moody bill.
124. Is that right?
I'll give it to Thomas.
They did, we set out last time, when are they due back?
February 10th at 2 o'clock.
Brad, the police chief search.
Mm-hmm.
Where we at? And I've had a lot of people reach out to you all the time. That is not a decision we made. It's a city manager decision. So, if you guys, any questions or anything, you know, be Matt can at city.org. But I try to get an update of when the timing on it.
We are looking at next week to finish up. I feel that we should do background checks on, we've got a company that'll do background checks for us. So once that's done, offer will be made, be in place, hopefully. Of course, might have to put a notice in, if they come from outside, I have to put a notice in, and things like that. But interviews have gone well. We had some really good candidates. Interviews went really well. We had a panel of 4 people for the interviews. I felt really good about them. I felt like they went really well. So we're doing our due diligence to get the right candidate.
One thing we need Rob or Jason or someone work on, Billy Madison, who's doing the meat processing plant, still coming down, working out a few things, possibly the locations or whatever. So the location that he's looking at, we've talked about, we need to see about 3 things. He's made contact with Evergy and how close it is, so, but he needs maybe our help to get the price of what it might be to do that. So I think if Rod can do it,
They still looking at the same location for that? I had heard at one point they had talked about moving that
yeah,
location.
he's up for looking at that talks, and so we're just trying to, I think right now he's like, he's doing a lot of the work, as far as the stuff we should be doing. So, Rob or whoever can help with that, that'd be great. UTV thing, they called, so they're wording of it previously.
I'm going to look at it and I'll give it Bob. I think it just needs reworded a little bit about the inspections, and it's open for opinions. I don't honestly think a UTV needs to be inspected once a year. Travis, if Travis is still here, he might have an opinion on that. I'm not sure what you guys' opinion is.
I think if you're not going to inspect it every year, I think the most important thing is on the initial one that it is, and if someone's going to come in I tell you what, and I think it's a good way to do things. When I come in every year to get a new permit on my golf cart, I think whoever's issuing me that thing, when I'm applying for that, since I've got a new form, should take a second and look in the drawer and say, did they have a permit before? Because if I come in here and say, well, I had a UTV permit last year and they can't find anything on record, then it needs to be inspected.
Well, what we need to do is be consistent and have better systems in place.
Yeah, we do.
It's not it's not fair to Lisa or Corey or Kimberly or Daisy or whoever's up there to have a policy that is kind of misleading. It's because it's basically just have to read between the lines. Hmm.
I personally think the first time is good. I mean, cars don't get inspected in Kansas, like, even in Missouri now, so they don't inspect it. So I personally don't think we need to inspect them every year. I think the first year is good.
Crawford County does every other.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I'm just saying we need to make sure that it's not, if they're saying it's a renewal, that we can see that it is in fact a
Mhm.
renewal and that it has been inspected that first time.
Right now, what it's worded is, it basically says you get inspected every year. So your renewals.
I don't think it actually, I think it's, do you have it there, Brad?
Mhm.
Because I read through it too, and what I saw is it says should be inspected. I didn't think it said every year in there.
Every year it says, here's the wording that,
Yeah, it doesn't say every year though. I think it says prior to.
prior to issuance of a registration license, each applicant ATV license shall first present such vehicle for official inspection.
Yeah, it's
That's
so.
all it says.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I don't know what, when you say people have reached out and read between the lines, that's, to me, that's gobbledygook.
Well,
That's
if
what
I'm
it
coming,
says.
if I'm coming to get a license, it says I first must present an official inspection. Now, is that an official inspection from last year or this year? This year. So every year they have to have an official inspection. That's what that says. I think it's the first time you present.
Yeah, I think the first time.
So you're saying one time and that's it?
Yeah, but the thing is, let's say I have a UTV, right, and I own it for 3 or 4 years, and I beat the living crap out of it, and I sell it to Bob, and now Bob is the new owner. I think that Bob should need to get an inspection
Yes.
as the new owner prior to. So I think there could be some very quick and easy wordsmithing on that. to
That's
make
all
it
we got to
clear.
do is just bullet point it and go with it.
I'm just saying right now, it says prior to
Okay.
issuance of the registration license, each applicant must present.
I'll write it up and I'll give it to you tomorrow. And do you,
That's easy.
will you need to approve it then? After he looks at it?
If it's been changed, yes.
Okay, all right. So next meeting, you guys will have that.
The other thing is, I think here, next meeting, I would like to start, conversations of possibly taking the interim off Brad. I mean, sometimes those take a couple weeks to do, and I hate to wait, much longer, either what's going to happen, if not one or the other.
Yeah, just kick me in the shin.
I think next meeting, I would like to have an agenda for discussion of, are we good status quo or moving forward? At what point? I think we get a timeline, timeframe.
I think probably next meeting, I would like to have maybe an executive session on that subject, and then maybe for the week, for the meeting after.
So you want me to be put that on the list, another executive session, another city manager. And I think that's, I just want to thank everyone that helped for the comedy concert. The American Legion, Bailey, Lyons, Houston, Fort Worth, Jackson, Tubb, Dave Bruner, Rocket Village, yeah, it raised, we had a really good turnout, we got about 400 people. We probably had 5,000 to 6,000 for the splash pad. How'd you find this stuff? Social media. So, no, that's good. Been following forever, the guy's traveling, you know, like say he's in Las Vegas, Los Angeles, San Diego coming up, so I think just tying up the right time, we can do a long time, but I mean, it was a really good, could have been no hiccups except fire alarm went off, because the comedy show, so we played in. Fire alarms work well. I just want to thank everyone that helped out with that. So we are planning, hopefully if everything goes good, I'm not sure if the venue Riza Live is an act out of Branson. I mean, they're the world's top traveling illusionists right now. Hopefully February 17th they'll be here. So, and I think some of that money will just be helped raise for downtown improvement somewhere. Downtown district. Other than that, that's it.
All right, Commissioner Van Hook.
Yeah, thank you. City crew, thanks a lot for everything you're doing out there. I know the water main break last night was no fun for anybody.
And again, Travis, gonna miss your smiling face back there. Not gonna miss the glare, but gonna miss. But you're getting it right back from me up here. So. But and again, got a little bit of weather coming in tonight. Look out for your neighbors. Respect and look out for the EMS and first responders that are trying to get where they need to be to do their job. And that's all I've got today.
Commissioner Walhall?
Yeah, so I was asked last meeting to look into the maintenance management system, computerized maintenance management system. I found two companies just kind of through looking for them, and then one that was recommended to me. All three of which are willing to kind of do a trial demo for us. Would we like to move forward with that?
I would like you to get with Doug Guns, who I think is still here. He's been looking also, so we'll get some more names, and we can schedule. You can exchange emails or appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah, demos are good.
So, like I said, all three of those companies are willing to give us a trial demo.
That'd be awesome.
Or whatever. So, and then a while back when we had the city-county meeting, it was mentioned that Meals on Wheels might be coming to us. Has anybody heard anything about that? My understanding was it was United Way that pulled away from funding some of them. Has anybody heard anything?
No, the last I heard was Commissioner Harris said is they may be in that situation, and if they were, they would reach out to us.
Okay. And then you were supposed to meet with Reno Dry. How did that go?
Norm talked to him, went over to Memorial Hall. They're getting a quote. Norm said it, the guy he said it's a pretty big undertaking, but said it wasn't something they haven't faced before. He said that whatever, it's a patented system. He said whatever they have to do, they can solve the moisture problem.
So we're still waiting to hear back from them.
Yes, but it's gotta go all the time. So it's probably going to be a monthly or yearly contract that you have to keep doing.
I actually spoke to the gentleman today. The
Okay.
report's ready. He's going to email us.
Awesome.
We'll have it this week.
Good.
That's all I have.
Let's all pray for Commissioner Harrington. I believe she's ill this evening, and we want to wish her the best. Hope she comes back to see you very soon. My comments are, again, follow up what some of the other people said. Just continue to pray for Pete. We cannot say enough good things about the value that he brought to this commission during his time, the work that he put in, so many countless hours helping to go through and label the streets, figure out the square footage, the types of streets. And that wasn't all that he did, but the amount of time that he put into that project alone that has been such a benefit to the city is just a testament to the wonderful individual that he is. So I ask all of you to continue to be in prayer for him and his healing. I would like to quickly mention that our state champions, I had a note here, but for some reason it's not pulling up. So give me just 1 second if you would. I had the coach from the high school do a quick write-up on the trophies that were brought back from the state championship. And I'll read you what he wrote. Allow me first to say how honored I am that you have chosen to celebrate the success of the Fort Scott Talking Tigers. On January 14th, the teams of Reagan Wells and Candace Tuck, Joyce Self and Kinsley Davis, Anna Hall and Sylvia Monroe brought an immense pride to this first-year coach. I tend to be a fairly level-headed person, but I've never known stress like wrangling emotionally distraught cats commonly referred to as teenagers at a state-level tournament. The competition at said tournament has always been fierce, and this year was no different. We are fortunate that in the 4A division, we have a wide array of debating styles. This undoubtedly makes us unique not just in the state of Kansas, but nationally as well. And I have a desire to keep the name of Fort Scott debate respectable in the state. However, I have a greater ambition. I want to make our team a nationally competitive one, and these kids have given me the greatest start a coach could hope to in their career. So what we're talking about is that our debate team went to the state tournament, and they brought home not one but 2 state trophies. They claimed the 2nd and the 3rd spot as the best debaters in the state of Kansas. And as anybody who's been involved in debate or in any kind of sports at all, bringing home a state trophy that's going to go in there at the high school and be on display is something to be very proud of. So I just want to say how awesome it is to have those kind of caliber of kids attending our school, giving of their time. I know that those kids, they spend a lot of time, just as much as the football players do in the weight room. These kids are working on their debate skills. They're working on cutting cards, building their cases, and the academic sports, in my eyes, is just as important as the physical sports at our high school. And it's awesome to see these kids out there representing our city so well. So I wanted to commend each and every one of them. That's all I have. Do we have any comments from the city attorney this evening?
I would. You brought back a memory about the many hours of time spent in debating. And our program has advanced significantly from when I was in school. We had a guy that didn't have an idea whether he was the janitor or the English instructor. And his comment, his teaching style was, well, here's a pre-printed manual. You might want to read that. And good luck. So I'm proud of those kids. That's all I have.
I've got one other thing. Jeff Hancock has the consultant that will help with goals and evaluations for our city, myself, and even the commission. He would like to set up a meeting, a work session at 5 o'clock next commission meeting. He wanted me to tell you about that. So I didn't know if everybody was available at 5 o'clock on the next commission meeting. And
you set the goals for the training is what we were going to do this evening.
Training session.
No, it's part of the package.
It's part of the Baker Tilly.
Yeah, it was just an opportunity for us as the commission to set the goals that we were looking for.
Will it be food? It'll be on the 7th.
What's that? We got some stuff.
No, I'm available.
Yes, I'll be available as well.
He said 5 o'clock will work.
Was there a reason Baker Tilly wasn't here this evening to permit the
Jeff had a something going on, and Ben just got back on vacation.
Okay.
Probably catching up.
Got to recoup.
So we will do a 5 o'clock work session prior to the February 7th meeting.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I would move to adjourn.
Tim Van Hookey?
Yes.
Edwin Woolhall?
Yes.
Josh Jones? Matthew Wells?
Yes.
Matthew.
It's something that can be addressed by changing the wording in policy. Yeah, and we can put that onto the street advisory board. Where do you see those?